Welcome to Texans Unfiltered.
Here we go.
A Houston football podcast for your Houston Texans.
All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of Texans Unfiltered, a Houston football podcast for your Houston Texans. I am young Ari Gold, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, John Wade, the Garnet Texan. Texans Unfiltered is brought to you by Run Game Clothing. Go to rungameclothing.com. Use promo code Unfiltered for 15% off your order. And John, wow, we can't get into the game yet. Lot to unpack here. I mean, just a lot. But I wanted to start off with an apology. It seems that I've offended a couple people. Some people are pretty upset with some of the things I've said. So I want to apologize. You guys, I can't tell you how much I did not mean to do that. When we started this podcast, we started it as fun. And for me to offend somebody is not why we did this. So, I apologize for being me every single freaking week. I cannot believe that there are people getting on to me about criticizing Deshaun Watson's game against Carolina. So I apologize for being authentic, and I apologize for being real every single week. And I apologize that I have high standards for a superstar quarterback that I can see flaws in his game, and I critique him. I don't know what you guys expected. You guys have been listening.
People are offended because we pointed out that Deshaun Watson had a very bad game, that Deshaun Watson would be the first to admit that he had a very bad game, that we have pointed out what is most known by just about every single Houston Texans fan. If Deshaun Watson has a bad game, this team isn't doing anything. So Deshaun Watson cannot have a bad game. And this is offensive?
Correct.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, so it's one thing I've realized, and I think here's what I've realized, and I've said it before, but because I'm only a fan of one Houston sports team, I mean, I've watched every Astros playoff game in the last 3 years. I watched all of them this weekend. I even watched the first 5 innings at ACL while I waited for the cure. I mean, I'm pulling for the Stros. They get me into baseball in October. It's just the way it works. But I'm not a fan of the Astros. I'm not a fan of the Rockets. But I am a diehard fan of the Texans. And what I've realized is in this city, if you say anything bad about your superstar, one, you're not a fan, which is a problem. Two, that all of a sudden you just don't know what you're talking about. And I've realized that it's a Houston thing, and I'm baffled by it. I'm truly baffled. But
actually,
then,
you know what, James? It's actually a Southern thing. I think you spend too much time out in California. Because when you kind of bring it up, I realize that there's, with any team in the SEC, there's the exact same problem. There's a little bit of it with even UT here in Austin, where if you criticize them, all of a sudden you're no longer a fan, unless it's the coach. The coach is always fair game. We can always want to fire our coach. Everything else, if they're our good player, if they're our marquee player, if they're the guy that's on the banner, you really can't say anything about them.
You can't. And I literally, I will never ever specifically go out of my way to down talk Houston, because Houston is probably more of a home than California is to me. I just love living in California more than I do Houston. But I grew up with championships, and I don't want to come off entitled, but I grew up winning. I grew up watching my franchises win. I saw people criticize Magic Johnson on a regular basis. I watched my dad scream at Shaq. I've watched him scream at Kobe. I've seen people in national media rip Kobe and Shaq and LeBron, and just name any of our superstars that we've ever had in LA, going all the way back to, the Dodgers. Look at what they're doing to Clayton Kershaw right now. That's going on in LA and outside of LA. It's happening all over. So my mindset is I want to win as a fan, and I want to see a championship at one point before I die. I want the Texans to win a championship. And I know that me criticizing is not going to get us there. I understand that. And I know that I don't have any implications on what the team does or how they play the game or how they get better. But at the end of the day, if you settle for mediocrity, you're always going to have it. And I know that we can't control what the Texans do, like as fans, but you could start to make noise and talk about the right things as compared to the wrong things. If you honestly believe that Bill O'Brien just decided against Atlanta, I know how to call plays now and scheme, and then also do it again against the Chiefs, then you're an idiot and you have no reason to like be a football fan because that's not the way the game works. Okay. So it's just funny. It's multiple conversations I've had, and they'll remind me, well, he's only 24. Okay. What's your point? The guy's won national championships. He's been a winner his entire life, and he's going to figure it out. And guess what he's doing right now? He's literally figuring it out. And like John said, he would be the first to tell you that the Carolina game was just an awful game by him. It was on him. There's a reason why he stayed after. Okay? He knew. That's a telling sign. But he knows it, and he's working on it. So that apology was tongue-in-cheek. I really don't care. Now let's get into something else. One thing that I learned...
I'm pretty sure you made it pretty clear that it was tongue-in-cheek. I don't think you don't have to point out the obvious.
No, you just never know.
And I will say this. It's one of those things where I encourage people to learn a little bit more about football, and it's fine if you don't. It's fine if you just want to listen to us. It's fine if you want to listen to other podcasts. But it will help you become both more critical and enjoy the game more at the same time. When you're just sitting there and you're essentially scoreboard watching and you're just watching for positive plays, but you don't really quite understand what they're going through, it makes it a lot easier to get angry. But when you sit there and you learn more about the game, you can at least understand why you're getting angry or why somebody's pointing out something. And this isn't to downplay Deshaun. Not at all. Deshaun is rightfully so in the MVP conversation. However, he is human. This isn't Madden. They're not going to go out there and just play up to their stats every single game. They're going to go out there and they're going to have bad games. And it's okay for us to say, hey, let's not crucify the coach this week. Let's crucify so-and-so. Or there's going to be weeks where we're going to say we should be crucifying the coach. We have in the past, and we'll continue to do so. It's every week's a little bit different. And again, it doesn't mean that we hate Deshaun. It's actually the exact opposite.
Yeah, I mean, what do they say? Like, if I didn't like you, I wouldn't be so hard on you, right? Like when you have clear expectations for somebody and you know that those expectations can be reached and met, and we know that that's the case with Deshaun. We've seen it. Like Colin Cowherd really had like a very, very good segment today talking about how Watson was the Mahomes before Mahomes, but yet that was just lost. And because he doesn't do no-look passes and all these other highlight reel things, even though what he does do are highlight reel throws and multiple, he's done a ton of them. And his rookie year, he was getting all the love nationally everywhere. And then Mahomes came in and he just had an average year to the average football fan and to the national broadcasters and local media too. Nobody really talked about how good Deshaun Watson was last year. He was great considering what he went through. I would love to see another quarterback get sacked 62 times and hit over 85 times and do what Deshaun did, win 10 games and go 11-5 and put up the numbers he put up.
It's kind of amazing that if you look at a lot of the national media, they're even saying that last year Deshaun wasn't that good.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But when you have clear expectations, you're harder on those people because you know what they can do. We know Deshaun is freaking amazing. I truly believe, and I'll say this to a Chiefs fan, I'll say it to Andy Reid, I think Deshaun Watson is the best young quarterback in this league. I truly believe that. We've said it before. We've had the conversation. We know what Watson is. We give you guys the Watson cast annually. And then it ends up being where we give you a Watson cast every week. So we know, but I'm not going to just sit here and take the easy way out and criticize the coach. It's a lazy, easy way for us to do this. And that's not why we started it. So you guys can either, and now we'll get into this part of it, now that we know we'll never, ever, ever, ever get media passes because we criticize the team, I really don't care what we do anymore. I really don't. I don't care what we do. If we cuss, whatever it is, the fact that the franchise that we want to help and promote and be a part of and just enjoy and do the things that we want to do won't give us a media pass because we criticize the team, then you know what? Oh well, it doesn't matter. And there was somewhere else I was going to go with that, but I lost my train of thought. But either way, my point is this team is something that we love and you guys love. For you to listen to us every week, you have to love this team because we are just two guys. We're two guys that happen to know football and enjoy watching the game. If you're listening, that means that you love football just as much as we do. So you're going to get this every week. And I'm going to criticize Deshaun. I'm going to criticize BOB. I'm going to criticize the front office or the lack thereof in the front office, whatever it would be. But we are never going to sell out. We are never going to go against what we like and what we enjoy. And we're not going to do it for anything. So, all right, that's enough. Let's, I went to ACL this weekend, John. It was really fun. My wife's favorite band is The Cure. So I bought her, we bought VIP tickets, and went and we were able to go to like the decking, like this decking plate, like view for like on a deck. It was really cool. Really good drinks. Yeah, it was really awesome. They provided us with free alcohol and food and massages and all this great things. It was an amazing weekend. Then my car got broken into. Whatever. We already know about that. We don't need a hamp on that. But then yesterday, you, me, Devin, the wives, the kids, we met at Pluckers. Ended up being a great time. We ended up having the whole patio to ourselves because it was supposed to be closed. We got to watch the game. The wives got to talk and hang out, and the kids got to play. That was an extremely fun day yesterday. You know, that was great. It was great that Devin and Nora and Olivia got to come. That was just a really fun time. And then they left at halftime, which was perfect. Gave us the opportunity to watch the second half uninterrupted. And but yeah, it was just a great time. I got pretty plastered. And
as anybody that saw the Instagram live feed.
Yeah. But I mean, it was just fun. It was a great way to watch the game.
Yeah, even though I probably wouldn't recommend that Pluckers. They got an issue with their grease trap, but it was fun. The service was good.
Average, good.
I mean, not really complaining about that. I mean, just every time like I'm checking my kid's diaper, it's like, nope, that's the grease trap. But
yeah, they just need to pressure wash that back patio.
That'd probably go.
Pluckers outside of that is great.
Yeah, and well, their fries are straight U.S. food frozen bag fries, which kind of surprised me based on everything I'd heard of Pluckers. If you can't tell, both me and James have been in the restaurant industry for a little bit at some points in our life. Yep. But other than that, can't complain. It was a good place to watch the game. I walked inside and there was more Texans fans than Cowboys fans. Granted,
always a good sign.
Yeah, the Cowboys played a little bit later, but you know, I'm always down for that.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was a good time. All right. So I'm going to call an audible here real quick. We typically go into game recap and reactions. We're going to go down to predictions. We're going to start with predictions.
Dude,
I think it's a great time.
We got to retire. We just got to retire predictions. We are never going to top last week.
No.
Last week was just pretty much completely and totally spot on. I'm not sure I'll ever bother. We can't do that again. Never going to be that right ever again.
So let's recap. So John thought we would shock the world and beat them. Said that we were the first team that the Chiefs have played that can go toe to toe with them offensively. And he's right. And then I said, I thought we would win and I thought we would win convincingly. I think I said 10 points. Or I said I wouldn't be surprised if we won by 10 points and that the fan base would feel even better than they did after the Falcons game. I specifically mentioned playing man. We saw a lot of that, which was a shock. We established a run. We used the quick, short passing game to open up the downfield throws. Unfortunately, we didn't connect on those downfield throws. Well, let me rephrase. Deshaun connected on the deep downfield throws, but the receivers didn't do their part. So yeah, as far as predictions go, I don't know if predictions are ever going to be able to be as spot on as those were.
Yeah, we nailed it. And damn, I mean, I re-listened to our predictions from last week earlier today before the show, and I'm absolutely shocked how right on we were. So at this point, we can't top that. We just can't. So maybe we'll have to retire it. I don't know. And what's crazy is I said we'd probably win by one score, and James said we'd win by about 10 points and would look better. And we were both right, because even if we had ended up blowing that game, we looked like the better team the entire game, other than a couple of really unfortunate plays at the beginning. But we really looked like the better team. We looked like the better offense. Deshaun looked like the better quarterback. And we were just a couple of inches away from having a multiple touchdown lead on the Chiefs. Like, we could have dropped, I don't know, 45 points against them.
50 based on the math I did.
Just by our receivers catching the ball. And if all of them catch it, yeah, we easily get to 50. And let's just say that we get back to, a normal ratio and one out of those three passes are dropped. Then we still are in the 40s. And that's what's crazy about this game. We left points on the board or on the field, and we beat the Chiefs. we didn't play a perfect game. We could have played better.
Well, and we started off awful. I mean, I don't think it'd be like yesterday. Both of us and Devin, we were like, "This, we know where this game's going." What was it, 17-0? Was it 17-0 or 17-7?
I think it was 17. Yeah, it was 17-0. Was it?
Okay, yeah, I could have sworn it was. Anyways, we were all three of us were like, okay, well, this is over. I ordered another drink extremely quick. I did not expect us to turn it around once I saw that we were in such a hole, because typically when you play the Chiefs, if you're down, no matter who you are, if you're down by 17, the chances of you coming back and winning that game against that high octane offense are very, very slim. It's just not the way it works out. And, but yet that wasn't the case yesterday. This team came to play. They came to play in all four phases, and they were extremely good. So I called this game 3 weeks ago. I said that this team is a combination of the Saints and Chargers. And that's what we were yesterday. Except we had a better defensive performance yesterday than we've had all season. It was a balanced attack, huge rushing game, dink and dunks when needed, hit on the downfield throws. They just couldn't bring it in. An anomaly on one wide receiver, not necessarily an anomaly on another wide receiver. But I mean, we really should have scored 50. It was a hell of a game on both sides.
Yeah, we got down 17-3 before. Yeah. 17-3, and I remember that because we were sitting there and we were like, if they get one more score, so we had held them to a field goal, but if they had scored a touchdown instead of that field goal, we were saying we're all leaving. We're not going to be able to sit here and watch us get it handed to us. We held them to a field goal, which kept us at Pluckers, thank God, because it turned into something. And it turns out, had they had scored a touchdown, we would have still came back. But, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the part that people need to really kind of keep in mind, is just the fact that, we were down 14 points to this team in the first quarter, and we came back and put a beat down on them. And when I say a beat down, we'll get into the defense, we'll get into the offense, but that second half, that was literally, and this is not being blown out of proportion, that second half alone was the best offensive game plan Bill O'Brien has ever put together in his entire career as the head coach of the Houston Texans.
I would say maybe starting in the second quarter, because we scored 20 points in the second quarter.
Well, okay, I agree, but I don't want to include the second quarter because of what we did in the second half with, I think, the time of possession.
Just how we played keep away, essentially.
Yes, in that fourth quarter, I think the Chiefs only had the ball for a minute 25? Okay. That alone is insane. That's a crazy stat. He was negative 4 yards in the fourth quarter, Pat Mahomes. Think about that. You'll probably never see that stat line again from him in one quarter. Negative 4 yards in a quarter. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of speechless on it. This is Pat Mahomes. And it's been kind of interesting to read what the national reaction has been. Everything from, well, he was fine until he hurt his ankle again, and then after that, the Texans just took advantage to the Texans, actually blowing them out. So it just kind of depends on which analyst you kind of listen to. And, I will say this. I will say the Chiefs they're a good team, but we also got to remember this is the NFL. And even having a good team with a young quarterback on a rookie deal, every team is going to have holes between just not having enough players out there, not having enough cap room to spend the money on the players, and not having enough time to actually put these teams together and practice together. So the Chiefs have some very, very, very obvious holes. But they get elevated to this near mythical status because of the game planning of Andy Reid and the play of Patrick Mahomes. And -4 and a quarter is just not supposed to happen.
I mean, honestly, to put that in perspective, Gardner Minshew will probably never have a fourth quarter where he is -4 yards. Like,
and
honestly,
this is without any of our cornerbacks. That's what's amazing about it. Who were the players out on the field at that point? That was Lonnie Johnson, Crossan, and Gaines.
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't exactly a murderer's row of corners out there. Our pass rush was doing some work, but I don't even have words for it. And the more I sit there and I think about it, it's not even bad play calling can account for -4 yards. That's the Texans getting into their heads.
Well, they don't play from behind very often. And I don't really feel like they made much adjustments offensively. They still in the second half with a lot of motion, lots of screens. It was almost like the exact same game plan. One thing that it did was because they couldn't get anything going on the ground, even when they were up 17-3, Andy Reid completely abandoned the run game. And I think when you take that away from a quarterback, and even the great ones, when you take away that ability to run the ball and it's all on their shoulders, you're taking away a big part of their game that they need. And it just gives them the opportunity to do so much more on offense. And I need to look it up. I haven't looked it up, but I'd love to see how many times they rushed in the second half, because I don't believe it was much. So, all right. God. So, and then another recap and reaction with the offense starting so slow. What in my mind, what started to make me think was just imagine, because this is week 6, but yet it's week 6 of the same old first quarter Texans, outside of the Saints game. And whether it be a turnover or just, 3 and outs, whatever it would be, imagine if this team could just play for 4 quarters, at least on offense. If you could just see what the offense could do for 4 straight quarters, I truly believe that they would look just like, if not better than what the Chiefs looked like last year.
Oh, definitely. Part of it is Bill O'Brien sticks to the run even more so than Andy Reid, no matter what's going on. So actually, you know what? I'm going to take that back, because we were actually second in the NFL in plays ran last year, weren't we? So
Yep.
a lot of it's just finishing it. Half the season last year, we had the all field goal offense where we kind of joked about it and we're not scoring touchdowns. This year is almost like Deshaun's rookie year, where if we get in the red zone, we're going to score a touchdown. We're back to that. I think right now we are at the start of the Chiefs game, we were second in the league in red zone conversions. And I doubt our numbers dropped off that far because we only failed to convert once when we were in the red zone against the Chiefs. If we continue to do that and you just look at it season wide, yeah, we're going to have a season that is very, very similar to the Chiefs were last year when everybody was just talking about them as one of the all-time great offenses. The thing that's different, though, is just the national media coverage around what Deshaun does. And I just to throw it out there, it's like Mahomes runs around, looks crazy, it's like a mixture of Brett Favre and Mike Vick. Like he's running for his life, and then he just flicks the ball, and somebody comes up with a catch, and it's an amazing catch. Whereas with Deshaun, a lot of those big plays, even though he's a mobile quarterback, is just real calm, cool, and collected. And he just executes. Even when he does do a running play and Deshaun keeps the ball and picks up a first down or something like that, it's not this crazy out of control. It's always under control. And it doesn't look quite as good on TV. And part of the reason it doesn't look quite as good on TV is you're comparing it to Mahomes, even if it's the exact same play. Because Mahomes is going to just spin around and, I don't know, spin around, jumping jacks, do a little jig, where Watson's just going to go out there and pick up the 10 yards.
Yeah, no, and real quick, a quick update. The red zone efficiency has actually gone up. So we are now the number one red zone efficiency team in the NFL right now, 72.9%. So, I mean, the team is just, they're clicking on all cylinders. Like I said, the point of that was really just to talk about what if they were to do it for a whole game, which we haven't seen yet. And I think we will. I still think we will. I still think, there's things that are happening that are, we're having to adapt to, and that's going to happen. It happens over an NFL season to every team. With Titus going out now, we're going to have Roderick in, and we'll get into the O-line and the Titus Howard injury in general. But
and sorry, before I rambled, my whole point was we are already, if our offense is that effective for an entire game, like we're going to smash records, because right now where we're at, and it feels like we don't even put the whole game together, we're still on a record-setting pace, and a lot of people don't realize it until the narrative gets put out there. And the narrative, just because of the way, I guess it's just because we're Houston and the way we do it, the narrative's not going to pop up until about halfway through the season to 3/4 of the way of the season if we continue like this.
Yeah, I think the only record, just based on like what I've looked at stat wise, is we could set a record for red zone efficiency, but outside of that, from like a yards perspective, from a TD perspective, just considering that we're entering week 7 now, it's almost impossible for us to be able to like break offensive records. But yes, in the red zone, we could definitely finish with the best red zone offense in NFL history based on where we're going now. But it's such a week-to-week league that anything can happen. But I agree. I mean, it's just incredible just to see what this team could do. And like I said, once we see a full 4 quarters, it's going to be very interesting. All right, and one more thing before we get into the highlights of offense and defense. I've seen a lot of back and forth about this, and I'm just wondering, I wanted to get your opinion on this. Do we credit the defense for the second half stats, or do we credit the offense and Bill O'Brien for keeping the Chiefs offense off the field?
Both. I mean, you have to do both.
Correct.
Something with the time of possession, with how the Chiefs ended up, it's not one way or the next. Even though the offense kept the ball away from them, the defense kept them from putting a drive together, and then our offense executed. So it's both.
It's both. Correct. They go hand in hand. The ultimate team sport. All right, let's get into the offense. Highlights from the offense. Obviously, Deshaun was great. The one thing that Deshaun did, and this is what I've been so critical about for a year and a half now, is Deshaun was great at picking up blitzes, John. I mean, like really good at picking up blitzes, and it shows in the stat line for hits and sacks. He was truly amazing at being able to pick up the blitz, recognize the blitz, read the defense, just everything that we needed him to do for us to take that next step. He's gotten so much better at it. So I'm wondering if he's listening, because he just turned it on this last week, and it's quite amazing. The All 22 doesn't come out until tomorrow, so I haven't been able to I haven't rewatched the game. I wanted to do it today, but I had a bunch of other stuff I had to deal with because of the car thing. But it's really quite insane, the fact that he did it so well.
And the biggest thing is he's getting the ball out on time. And I know that there's a lot of numbers people that say that quarterbacks really don't get into rhythm. Getting into rhythm is a myth. That kind of takes away a little bit of the psychological, where when they start completing passes, they come in bunches. And with Deshaun, though, when he starts stringing together a bunch of completions, he starts to get the ball just out quicker. This is the second week in a row that he's going to be under 2.7 seconds to throw. And I think he was 20 of 23 on passes that he took less than 2.5 seconds to throw. And
I don't recall.
And it was for 190 something yards.
Oh, yeah, yep. I remember seeing that on Twitter.
Yeah,
it was 197 yards or something like that, or 187, something like that.
Which is just to say that he's seeing the defense a little bit better. And this is not to say that he wasn't seeing the defenses beforehand. Essentially what they were doing with Deshaun, and when they've had success with Deshaun, is he has about 2 seconds to decide where to throw the ball. And Deshaun wanted to always go for the big play. So 1-2, he has to identify what type of zone coverage it is, if it's a cover 2, cover 4, if they're blitzing. All these things he's got to figure out that we always talk about within 2 seconds. When he goes on those little rants at the end of the game, within 2 seconds. And what Deshaun had been trying to do during those 2 seconds is he thought that he would always be able to break the big play. He has now settled down for 2 games in a row and realized that just take what the defense gives you, and that turns into big plays. And it's just, this is when he's at his best. He had streaks of it last year, and if he can continue to put it together this year, then we might be onto something. Like, we may be watching an MVP season. I mean, he's got to go up and catch that game manager up in the Pacific Northwest, but
Devin is never going to live that down, by the way.
But it's
for just a little backstory. Devin, I'm not going to say his last name because I don't want you guys to find him. His daughter and wife are family, so I couldn't do that. But he called Russell Wilson a game manager yesterday during the game, and me and John both looked at him like, "Are you serious? You can't be serious right now." You can't.
I mean, Russell Wilson can. Russell Wilson. Oh, if you ever watch the Fantasy Football or listen to the Fantasy Footballers, that podcast, they do it the best. But I mean, if he's a game manager, he's a hell of a game manager.
I'll take that.
Every time you throw a touchdown pass, it's like he's doing an excellent job of managing that game. But right now, it's just between Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson, early season favorites. And we've got a lot of season to go. We've over half the season still to go, but that could shape up to be one heck of an MVP race. And it's just amazing that we've taken that step, and he's now starting to get that national recognition. And all the national shows that I typically listen to, they've started to kind of point that out, which at no point ever happened last year. And last year, he actually had a really good season. I swear to God, the next person that comes on and says, "Oh, he had a bad season last year," I may stop listening to him. I may turn into a troll. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to lose my mind, because he did not have a bad season last year. And that whole narrative just needs to go away because that did not happen.
No, I agree. So, all right. I mean, the question now is, can this okay, it's actually not really a two-parter, but I guess there's just more than one part to it. Can we expect this to be the norm moving forward? And if so, opposing defenses are in massive trouble. Because if you remember, anytime you play Tom Brady or any of the top quarterbacks in the league, anytime that you do it, the number one thing is you can't send extra blitzers. You just can't. That's not what if you do, they're going to pick you apart. And if Deshaun's getting to that point, good luck. Just good luck.
I would argue, the problem is Deshaun's always been an emotional quarterback. And if he's able to control that and play within himself, then watch out. Because he has been able to read the blitzes in the past. He would just try to do too much. He would always try to win the game. And if he realizes to let the other players around him win the game, and he doesn't fall into that trap where he tries to turn into Superman, he will be Superman. This isn't something to say watch out. It's just with him, it's always been a more of an emotional type thing that not to get over aggressive and not to try and do too much when you get frustrated, because every defense that's ever baited him into that's when he struggles. It's not necessarily the blitzing. It's not necessarily zone versus man, because he's beat all those coverages. He has played some very good defenses that have shown some very exotic looks since he first came into the league. And there have been times where they just essentially drop back, take away everything deep, make him play, make him dink and dunk. And that's what gets to him. And once he's kind of realized that it's like, okay, you're going to do that, we're just going to beat you like that, that's when he plays his best. And that's when teams should watch out.
Emotional quarterback, emotional head coach. Oh,
I know, right?
Could be a recipe for disaster.
It could also be a recipe for disaster. But it's also one of those things that if it's channeled correctly, it could also be a recipe for something special. That's just how it goes.
I agree. Nope, you're right. All right, so finish up the Deshaun aspect of this. The stat line: 30 of 42, 280 yards, 1 TD, 2 interceptions, 2 rushing TDs, 42 rushing yards. The biggest thing that I took away from the stat line is if you didn't watch the game, you didn't watch how good Deshaun actually was. That stat line doesn't represent how good Deshaun actually was yesterday.
No, it really doesn't. Again, that stat line was hurt by a couple of drops, not a couple of drops, more than several drops. And even if that stat line was entirely accurate without the drops, just watching Deshaun control the game and making the throws when he needed to make the throws. And I don't know who said it, and I think it might have been on Twitter, but DeAndre Hopkins had the most dominant 70 or what was it? How many yards did Hop end up with?
I don't something recall. I'll look it up right now.
It was less. It was like 68 yards, like 12 catches for 68 yards. But it was the most dominant 12 catches for 68 yards ever.
Yeah, I mean, DeAndre was dominant. Like like I said, you're not going to see that, like that type of performance based on his stat line, but it's the catches that he did make. And they were a lot of third down catches, for first downs. They were 5-6 yard catches, but when he caught those were when we needed him to catch them. And that person said it right on Twitter. Like, you probably won't see a performance like that in the sense of what he accomplished with those catches, because they kept moving the chains and they kept the offense on the field. And, for everybody that's upset about DeAndre Hopkins' stat line going into week 7, I get it. I know he's not on pace for 1,500 yards and everything else, but at the same time, like, if you watch what he's doing on the field, he's still extremely valuable. He's still the first read. And he still garners all the attention that he gets on a week in, week out basis. But yeah, I mean, he was stellar yesterday, and Deshaun was too. And that's the part, like, if you just look at the box score, you have no idea how good Deshaun Watson was yesterday. None. I mean, literally none.
If you just look at the box score, you have no idea how good Duke Johnson was yesterday.
No, you don't.
Or Akins was, or Fales was. I mean, the only person whose box score looks amazing is Carlos Hyde's. And I mean, 26 carries for 116 yards and a touchdown is, I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong, but that's not dominant either. And he dominated that game. It was just one of those where we had an offense with a whole bunch of weapons and they all contributed to it. And it was one of those where this is what I have been waiting for with Bill O'Brien and his offense and all the haters. And you can go back and listen to the shows from years past where I kind of talk about it. It's like, just wait when we have the right mix of running backs and we start to get on with the short passes and running through the air. It'll allow us to control the game in a way we haven't seen in years. And we'll do it without running Arian Foster into the ground, which is how we used to control the games. So this is the closest that I have seen this past game, not even the Atlanta game, to what I thought the Bill O'Brien offense was actually going to look like. And granted, we only had one quarter where we just put up points nonstop, and that was the second quarter. But how they controlled the game, and no matter what the Chiefs did, they were able to adjust. And we really should have scored more points. And we were just literally inches away from scoring an additional 14 to 21 points. Like, it's crazy. And this is what we've been waiting for. And I know the Chiefs defense was bad, but when you look at the mix of play calling and the mix of the types of plays that were called and the players that were involved, like, we should be really hopeful. Like, this isn't drinking the Kool-Aid. This is what we've been waiting for. Now, hopefully it continues. I mean, but this is it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the run game, let's get into it. So, I mean, the run game was established early. I mean, extremely early. They went to Carlos Hyde often. Obviously, he fumbled on the first play of the game on offense. But after that, he looked like a man possessed. And I don't mean in the sense of like Christian McCaffrey or, prime Todd Gurley or Zeke. But when you watch him run, he ran so angry. I mean, he was getting 2 to 3 extra yards after contact each time he had the ball in his hand. He was playing with a chip on his shoulder. Obviously, coming from Kansas City, I'm sure he had this game, circled, and that's fine. Most players do when it comes to those kinds of things. But when you just watch him run the ball and how angry he was when he did it, you could just tell he's rejuvenated. I mean, this really is the Carlos Hyde that everybody was expecting coming out of Ohio State. He showed flashes of it in Cleveland, in San Francisco. And I mean, this will be one of those moves at the end of the season that we talk about where we say, wow, look at what Bill O'Brien did. Like he turned a player that they were going to cut. You can have another conversation about should they have cut Rankins or traded Rankins. That's an entirely different conversation because me and John are in the camp that no, you probably shouldn't have cut Rankins. But at the same time, when you look at the way the offensive line is performing, it's kind of hard to argue against it when you add Carlos Hyde into the mix. But it's going to be one of those under the radar moves that people talk about for quite some time, or at least not quite some time because it's not like a historic move. But at the end of the season, it'll be something we talk about, and we'll be wondering, is Carlos Hyde going to be our running back moving forward? Kenny Golladay is so good. All right. Duke Johnson. Okay,
Carlos Hyde is going to be one of those underappreciated. It's one of those underappreciated moves that at the end of the year that you're going to look back and be very, very thankful that it happened. And that was the one call of the game before I went into my pessimistic, this is too good for things to happen shell, where I was not afraid after he fumbled it because he runs better when he's angry. And I would hope somebody just goes and slaps him in the face before the next game so he doesn't have to fumble the ball to get angry. But if that's what it's going to take, whatever. Fumble the first handoff every game and then just run like that the rest of it.
Or just do like the water boy, just say something about his mama and like let him like envision you as a baby or whatever it would be. How Adam Sandler did that in The Water Boy. That would work too. So Carlos Hyde, 26 carries, 116 yards, 1 TD. Obviously he fumbled. It wasn't something that we want to see, but he made up for it. The team made up for it overall. Duke Johnson, 5 carries, 34 yards, 2 catches for 20 yards, and 1 TD. Both running backs were very good in pass protection. And Duke Johnson, again, we're going to come back to this every week because people are looking at it like, I can't believe, we traded a third for a guy that's, adding 60 yards in offense. But like, if you honestly put it into perspective, that third round pick next year, whether it was a running back or, a wide receiver or, whatever it would be, if you got that production out of that third round running back, you would have been happy. And so I think I think that's the way you should probably look at this trade. Is Duke Johnson is under contract for the next 3 years and has been productive, and the chances of you getting a third round guy to be this productive his rookie year or his second year are it's pretty high. I mean, pretty low. So think about that for a second. Like, you traded a third for a guy that gave you 60 yards and a TD, and he's giving you about 60 yards every week.
Yeah, Duke Johnson, he is being used as a change of pace back. The problem was there was this hope because Duke Johnson is so efficient with the ball that he would get more carries. He has gotten more carries here than he did in Cleveland, but right now they've kind of got it worked out exactly where they need to with him. And there's going to be games. I thought it was actually going to be this game where it was just a pure shootout where we would have to score every single time, and that it was going to be a Duke Johnson game. We just happened to control the Chiefs a lot better than we expected. Our defense actually showed up and played better than you could have asked. I mean, we just didn't get into that shootout. Regardless of what the score looks like, we had control of the ball. That's why Duke Johnson's numbers aren't eye-popping. And that's okay because he's doing exactly what you want him to do. He is still one of the most efficient running backs in the league. He's still one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league. And you're not going to find that for a third-round pick. If you want that in a running back, you're going to have to draft him higher, no matter how many yards you give him. And, maybe they end up in the next couple of years working him into more of a role. But right now, the balance they have between him and Carlos Hyde, and I don't think they even expected this much out of Carlos Hyde. I mean, you just go with it.
I agree. And I don't. There's no issue for the way that we're using it. I understand that you would want more, but if you're winning, does it really matter? And it kind of goes back to the DeAndre Hopkins stat line. Like, if DeAndre's not getting 1,500 yards and he finishes with 1,000 or 1,100 and, 5 TDs or whatever it would be, and you're winning, there's no reason for you to care. No reason. So quick question, John, is this through 6 games, is this the best 1-2 punch at running back that we have had in the O'Brien era?
In the Bill O'Brien era, yes. I mean, this is like peak Foster and Tate, and that's just because Foster was so good. Because I would rather actually have Duke Johnson and Carlos Hyde than Ben Tate. And I know that kind of sounds blasphemous, but thinking back on it, yeah, I think I would.
Yeah, I mean, I love Arian. He definitely, the way he glided, he's underrated as a running back in general, but what he meant to this team in this offense.
Two more healthy years of Arian. Injuries did that man wrong. He should.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. He's the best running back that we've ever had.
Yeah, he was a Hall of Fame caliber running back. He just didn't get enough years. But his peak years, yeah. I love Arian.
Yeah, I do too. All right. Offensive line, 0 sacks, 2 quarterback hits. One of those quarterback hits should have been roughing the passer because it was literally after the play pretty much. Frank Clark's a dirty son of a gun. But the O-line, yet again, the unit's gelling. They're performing at a high level. They're keeping Deshaun clean. They're helping him pick up blitzes. The offensive line is just continuing to. This was a good test too. I tweeted it out earlier. I saw a lot of people talking about the pass rush that we played, the last 2 weeks have been awful. Okay, that's fair. I would agree with you 100%. But the problem really hasn't been the first 4 games rushing, handling a 4-man rush. It's really been the blitzes and picking them up and being able to react to them and making the necessary changes to pick up those blitzes. The 4-man rush has not been the biggest issue. It's just been picking up blitzes. This week, what we saw was the ability to be able to pick up blitzes, shift the protection where you need it to go, and being able to execute the offense and getting the ball out quicker. These are the things that we were screaming for a long time. But this week we really saw a true performance from the offensive line from a defense that does blitz a lot.
Yeah. No, our offensive line definitely has the physical talent to be good, and now they're starting to gel, and they're starting to communicate better, and every single week they look better and better and better. This isn't an aberration because of the teams that we played. If you actually looked at the communication on the line, and again, like you were saying, how they shift, how they pick up blitzes, and how we talked about last week when Tunsil points out blitzers, those are all very, very, very good things. And yeah, I mean, all of a sudden we've got a top 10 offensive line, and knock on wood, we hope it continues, especially with Howard getting hurt. But I mean, Roderick Johnson, we wanted him to play during the preseason, just not like this, but he looked fine.
He looked fine. The unit as a whole just looked fine, and hopefully this just continues to go. I'm not expecting too much of a drop off from Titus to Roderick right now. I think the other four will be able to help him. Luckily it's on the right side and not the left side. That definitely plays a part. But I'm not expecting too much of a drop off, and that's not to diminish what Titus has done his rookie year. He's been extremely good for us, and he's been a lot better than what people expect. He was drafted as a, quote in quotations, developmental tackle. Well, developmental tackles don't typically play their rookie year, and when they do, they're usually not this good. And he's been very good for us. So, but Roderick Johnson, we saw him in preseason. We saw him this game. He looked fine. I expect there to be not too much of a drop off. And like I said, that's not to say that Titus isn't a better player. I just think the other four guys are going to be able to help him pick it up. All right, John, let's get to the defense. I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I wrote down 5 players, and I know you have the agenda, but without looking at the agenda right now, if you were to pick 5 players that had the biggest impact on the game, who would those 5 players be?
Lonnie Johnson.
Yep.
Roby.
Yep.
Reeder.
Yep.
I want to say both linebackers, but
Zach and B-Mac?
Zach and B-Mac.
Okay.
And that would put me at 5, even though you're going to disagree with this. But just from the amount that I have been able to rewatch, JJ actually had a better game than Stats State.
I believe that. No, I believe that.
So Reeder plus JJ is what allowed Amenahue, damn it, and Martin to make some very, very big plays. And Charles Amenahue, I owe that man an apology because I was not as high on him as I should have been. I think I prefaced it with it's because you would watch Big 12 football, but should have just gone with gut reactions on him. That kid can play.
Yeah,
that kid can straight up play.
So the 5 were Roby, Reeder, Lonnie, Amenahue, and B-Mac. Okay. And we'll get into here. So we're gonna miss Roby, just so everybody understands. Don't let the fourth quarter and the end of the third quarter fool you. Yes.
Yeah. We need Roby for TY.
Yes. We need Roby for TY, and we need Roby in general because he's our best cover corner. Lonnie is good, and he's showing development. He's showing progress every single week. He's getting better and better every week, which is what you want to see from a rookie corner. He's still got to learn to turn his head, turn around and make it, look like he's making a play on the ball. It's the Kareem Jackson syndrome. We all remember that when Kareem was a rookie. It's something that most rookie corners struggle with, but he's getting better every week. And like I said, that's what you want. And Lonnie has been really good, but Roby has been extremely good. Being able to tackle, okay, if there's a completed catch, but being able to tackle your guy right away and bring them down, that is a great trait to have as a cornerback, because basically you're ending the play there instead of allowing more yards after the catch. And Roby is always in the pocket, always in their pocket, all the time. And he's been stellar. We've said it for 2 weeks now. I've said it since the offseason. I expected him to be a huge player for us, and he has been. We're going to miss him. And the reason why he didn't show so much is because the defense wasn't on the field a lot in the second half. And that plays a part. So we're going to miss Roby, but he had a hell of a game. DJ Reader, oh my God. DJ Reader is a man amongst boys, bro. I mean, it's every week.
Me and Devin's conversation during the game was like, can we just give Roby and Reader contract extensions now before halftime's over? Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I think we should have. I still stand by that. They should have already be extended.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the Watson cast. We're going to have to start considering having the Reader cast because
we've had Reader segments
all the time, every week.
We love Reader here. If you are not aware of that, we love Reader here. And that is one of our earliest calls. And dude, he's just getting better. Like he's way better than even we thought that he would be.
Yeah, and he's getting better in a lot of areas that you wouldn't expect a defensive tackle to get better at. Collapsing the pocket, being able to push the center into the throwing lanes of the quarterback, not giving him a pocket to step up in. He's just become a better pass rusher, which isn't something you typically see from a defensive tackle, specifically in a 3-4. So yeah, DJ's like we said it 2 weeks ago that he's turned into a 3-down player, but it's just you're just seeing it every week. It's just constant. He's just getting better at everything you want him to get better at. And yeah, you're right. Like he's got to get locked up. And, luckily for us, I think the reason why they're not locking him up right now is because the defensive tackle market for the last 3 years has not been very high. So you'll probably get Reader at a good price at the end of the season, and it'll probably be the same that you can get him now. So you're saving a little bit of cap room in case anything happens, during the season. Not saying something will, but if you were to make a trade for Pat Pete, it's easier to absorb that cost or any other potential trades. Who knows what happens? This is only week 6, so there are things that may need to happen for us to bring in a player or whatever it would be. So I think that's one of the main reasons why we're not seeing an extension for DJ Reader right now. But yeah, the guy's got to get locked up. There's really nothing else that should be said. I think he's been the best defensive player on this team this entire year.
Yeah, if not the most important, and
the most consistent.
He's allowed all of the other players around him on the defensive front to look better. Every single other, Montague, Watt, Merciless, they're all benefiting for him, including B-Mac when he pass rushes. Like Reader has been an absolute force of nature, and yeah, hopefully they have a plan because we cannot lose him. We just cannot lose him.
I don't think we'll lose him. I don't think there's a chance that we don't, unless some team just blows him out of the water and pays him $12 million a year. But yeah, we'll see. There's still so many games to go in this season. Lonnie, my God. We haven't seen a cornerback be able to cover a tight end the way that Lonnie Johnson covered Travis Kelce in the second quarter and third and fourth quarter since AJ Bouye left.
And it was a different style of coverage.
It was very
Lonnie
physical.
Johnson beat the hell out of Travis Kelce.
Yeah. No, he did. And
Travis, if you haven't seen the clips, just go rewatch them because he beat the ever living hell out of him.
Yeah, go to Rivers Twitter and you'll see that one of the followers was asking for a couple clips, and you can just watch. He had hands all over Travis. He was very physical right off the line. He was not giving him any space. And it disrupted Travis completely. It really took Travis out of the game mentally, and you could see it. And Lonnie was great. Lonnie, like I said, he had a couple rookie mistakes. He's always going to. It's just a part of the game, especially playing that position. It's one of the hardest positions to play in the league. I would say quarterback, offensive line, and then probably secondary. If I had to just off the top of my head say what the 3 hardest positions are. But he's, like I said, he's getting better every single week at things that you need him to get better at. and he gives his team the ability to play man with him and Roby on the field. Last week, the Crossan and Gaines and Lonnie on the field. It just, he's good. He's really good. Okay, so let's get to your boy, Charles Omenihu. When you see draft specialists on Twitter say in week 6 after a game, that's why I had a first round grade on him. Now he's turning into a player, and then you go and look and see what grade they actually had on him, and it wasn't a first round grade. That's when you know that a player is starting to progress and develop.
Right.
And that's happening with Charles a lot right now. You're seeing a lot of the draft nicks, I say that in quotations, really praising Charles Omenihu. The only, I don't want to call it Zach Hicks a draft nick, because he's not, but he definitely scouts, and he's at the Senior Bowl. He was extremely high on Charles Omenihu. He wanted the Colts to take him in the second round. So just to show you like where he valued him, Charles is really becoming a player, and I think you could literally say that strip sack was the moment that the game turned around.
Yeah, Charles is something else. He was supposed to be a poor man's, player whose name we no longer mention because we all start to cry. But that's what he was supposed to be. He's slower, not quite as strong, but same sort of flexibility. However, Omenihu has less fear going up the middle and playing almost more of a defensive tackle type role. He looks stronger. Here's the thing about scouting reports, and it's really hard to predict a player's playing strength. With the bench press drill at the combine, bench presses, I mean, guys that are stronger than being able to do 2 plates, which is 225. And for whatever reason, they get in the gym and they can't move weight around. But if you ask them to go push a fridge or a car, they can. And I think we've all known those guys kind of growing up. In the NFL, when you have to try and compare a guy to college players and lower level talent, that's why they have to use these set drills, but it's not really accurate because Omenihu, he definitely does not look like he's overmatched out there, and he's a rookie. And that was one of the biggest knocks on him, is he wasn't supposed to be this strong. And I watching him against NFL players, he definitely looks plenty strong, and he looks like he has more lateral quickness than he was projected to have. Like, he just, again, it's one of those where scouts can be wrong. I mean, scouting reports can be wrong. Trying to go off basic drills, those can be wrong. And he was considered a steal of the draft for us, but even for what was considered a steal, he's outplaying that.
Look, he had a great game. I don't want to say he's turning into a player, because you see flashes happen often. But if we continue to see what we saw on Sunday, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a strip sack, it doesn't need to turn into sacks his rookie year, just, quarterback hurries, knockdowns, hits, whatever it would be, just pressure in general. This is a great thing, and this will go back to kind of what Jason Braddock was saying as far as like the team sacks and stats. The stat of the team having enough sacks to make up for what what we're missing from the player that shall not be named, even though I hate not being able to say his name. So yeah, and if that continues, fantastic, and I think it will. I mean, a lot of what he did on Sunday, outside of that sack, he was getting pressure. So it's just a great thing to see. Okay. BMAC is getting absolutely zero love this season, and it's kind of crazy because BMAC tends to get a little bit of love throughout the season. He did make it to the Pro Bowl last year, but what he's doing, take away the fumble recovery and just look at him as a run defender. He's destructive. He's such a downhill, just hit you as soon as he sees you type of linebacker. And it's the reason why the Texans defense is only giving up 88 yards on the ground. And honestly, think about that. I know we played McCaffrey, and he gashed us for 180 yards, but 80 of that was on the ground. The other 80 was catches. And BMAC's not going to cover Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield. It's just not going to happen. Nobody.
Yeah, opposing teams consider it a win when BMAC's covering the running back with good reason.
With good reason.
Because that's not what he should be doing. He's stopping the run and he's disrupting the passer on passing downs. If he's dropped into coverage, I mean, he shouldn't have to do it that often.
No. But the other part of his game that doesn't get talked about is just his, how effective he can be when he's rushing the passer. I think 2 years ago I said he was the best pass rushing middle linebacker in the league. When you send him on a blitz, he's typically going to hit the quarterback and force an errant throw. And we didn't see a lot of it this week, but when you do see it, he's just very effective at it. All right. This is turning into a really long pod again. Real quick, defensive rankings through 6 games. Total defense, Texans are 18th. Passing defense, Texans are 24th. Rushing defense, we are 8th. And we'll come back to the rushing defense in a second. 11th in sacks, 14th in scoring, and 9th in turnovers. So we're average. We're middle of the road if you combine all that. I would say that they're better than their stats this last week, at least. Preston called me last week. He was talking about how I don't give the defense enough love. And I told him that's because of who we've played so far. It's easy to give them love when you're playing Gardner Minshew and Kyle Allen. But this week would be the week that let me know what this defense could be. And I think what we saw out of this defense was a very aggressive defense, which is not something that we're usually going to say about this team. As we've seen Rack be the bend don't break, playing prevent defense type of coordinator. But the defense as a whole looked a lot better this Sunday than they have all week. All season.
It's one of those things with our defense that in some regards, I'd almost argue that we're more productive with our defense this year than we were last year, even though overall our personnel is not quite as good as it was last year. It's now that we have to be a little bit more creative with blitzing and a little bit more creative with coverage and using more man defense. Like, I think our defense is playing better because of that, because he's not trying to rely just on the athletes that we used to have.
No, that makes sense. I think that's a good comparison. All right, let's get into the lowlights of the offense. There were some. There were quite a bit actually, and it's funny to have those when you beat a team like the Chiefs. I'll start with the second interception into double coverage. I thought that was just a bad throw, decision by Deshaun. He should have never thrown that ball.
He had made up his mind to throw the ball before he saw the coverage.
Correct. And those are the types of things that he's got to correct. It didn't bite us in the butt this time. He played well. Obviously, we talked about it for 30 minutes. But those type of things, like, he's got to be better at. And obviously when you look at his TD to interception ratio, he's not Baker Mayfield, right? With 11 interceptions and 5 TDs. He only has three. I had to throw that in there. He only has 3 interceptions on the season. He takes care of the ball really well. That was just a bad decision on his part. The deep throw on 3rd and 1. That one, was it 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1? It was one or the other. I can't remember.
4th and 1.
I think it was 4th and 1. Not getting just the first down and taking a shot downfield. I get it because the defense is set up to try to stop you from getting the first down. So if you're going to take a shot, that's probably your best time to be able to do it from an analytics standpoint. And maybe that's where it came into play. But I just, being aggressive is great, but I think being aggressive at the right time is the key. And I don't think that was the right time to do it. I would rather us move the chains and keep the drive alive, keep their offense off the field, and see if we could add more points.
I'm cool with it.
Yeah?
I'm cool with it. I thought we were going to have to steal a possession. I thought we were going to have to do something like that. And, when you take those risks, sometimes you don't convert them. And so I'm cool with it. Sometimes you have to take risk. And I understand that it may not have been the smartest, but for years I have railed about this team being conservative. So when they're going to be aggressive, I'm not gonna all of a sudden switch. There, even when there is being dumb aggressive, but at the time and the team that we were playing, and the situation, I'm actually completely cool with it.
Yeah, I think though, like when I look at the team that we were playing, I think you can make an argument also like moving the chains and keeping them off the field and keeping the drive alive. Um, like obviously if you could score, but I don't know. I I guess it can go either way. I would have preferred for them to get the first down and just keep the ball moving, especially at that point in the game. But I could see an argument for it either way. Obviously, the slow start by the offense was a problem. Will Fuller decided to tie bricks to his hands this week, I guess, and try
They
to
were
catch the
sore
ball.
after last week, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he had blisters. Maybe he needs new gloves. I'm not sure what happened. This was very like reminiscent of his rookie year. It's the first time we've really seen it since Deshaun.
It's my fault. I said something about it last week. It's entirely my fault.
It probably is.
All my fault.
Your fault.
I take the blame.
But God, he was awful on the deep throw, like catching the deep balls last week. I mean, literally, there's no other way to put it. Like he was very bad. Like those were very well placed balls that he should have caught. It's not like they were overthrows and he had to dive for them. I mean, God, they hit him right where they needed to be, right where the ball needed to be, and he just could not do it. So hopefully that gets corrected. I'd like to think it will. I mean, he's shown us, so many times that he can catch those balls. It's just, I don't know, maybe the moment was really big playing the Chiefs. I'm not sure, but and I said last week that Will Fuller would be the key to us winning because Breeland was going to be locked up on him, and the fact that he just didn't double down on that, and God, it just would have blown the game just way out. I mean, it just would have changed the whole game. So hopefully that'll get it. Nuck dropped a TD too. Whatever. I mean, I'm not going to kill Nuck for something like that. Like,
I wonder if it's honestly the pressure that they're putting on themselves right now. Because you admit, I haven't watched it yet, and I really need to watch it, The State of the Black QB. But where Deshaun, you said he was just saying that, and right now in Houston, you have to win. So I wonder if that's part of it. So, because Nuck's had more drops this year, and now Fuller kind of having a little bit of a meltdown game against a top tier. It was just maybe the pressure they've put on themselves, where it's better that they have that pressure now and they just kind of get through it. So by the end of the year that they're just playing. And right now they just have this mentality that they have to win. And, sometimes that messes with your head.
Yeah, so what John's referencing is I forgot who did it. I think it's Bevel, but they did a little 20-minute video with Warren Moon, Deshaun Watson, Josh Dobbs, and EJ Manuel. Not sure why they chose the other two. Warren and Deshaun make total sense. The other two, not really sure, but because there are some other good black quarterbacks that you could have had in that room. I think Lamar Jackson would have been good. I think RG3 would have been good. But either way, whatever. And in that video, Deshaun, they're just talking about what black quarterbacks go through. Warren Moon talks about, I think when it opens up, he mentions how, why don't you throw that ball like a watermelon, or, just very racial remarks and some of the things that black quarterbacks go through. And when they went to Deshaun, Warren said, do you ever feel like the expectations are higher for you, that you have, you got to do a certain thing like right now and perform instantly before you get yanked and stuff like that. And Deshaun answered in the most Deshaun way possible, basically saying that, in the city of Houston, they are dying for a championship and they want to win now. And I feel that, and I want to give that to them. And when you, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't know, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was in that context. And when you see him talk about it, though, when you see his body language and his eyes and the tone he uses, you could just see that there is pressure there. And obviously with Deshaun, you'll probably never have to worry about pressure with him. That's actually when he thrives. My God, Aaron Rodgers with a beautiful ball. But it was just interesting. So that's what John's referencing right now is just kind of that aspect of it. Maybe that's the case. Maybe there's some pressure. I mean, I don't think DeAndre is a pressure guy. And he's had some drops this year where you're just kind of like, wow, really? That's the ball you drop. But Will Fuller, it's more of an issue just because you've seen this before, and it's not something you want to see, especially after last week what he did. All right, Titus getting hurt. This is not. Oh, Preston added something called Preston called this. Preston, why would you call this guy getting hurt? That's weird.
And why would you brag about that?
Yeah, why would you put an exclamation point at the end of this? No, we're going to pretend you didn't call it. It's almost like you made it happen with witchery and sorcery. All right, so Titus got hurt. It's a sprained MCL. He'll be back this year, according to Bill O'Brien, or he expects him to be. With these kind of injuries, though, it's something that you want to take care of. You want to be very optimistic, or you want to be very cautious. You want to take your time, because if they rush him back, then it could end up being much worse than what it is. And I would expect that to be the case. I don't expect them to rush him back. Obviously, it'll all be dependent on how Roger Johnson performs, but it sucks to see Titus got hurt. Another low light for me is just the lack of using Kiki. And I even put in parentheses me being nitpicky because I really like watching Kiki play and I like watching him catch. I think he's very dynamic. I love when he has the ball in his hand. But that's, like I said, me just being nitpicky. Anything about those two?
Yeah. You're just being nitpicky.
I am. I like Kiki a lot. I really do. I think he's. Well, I mean, I spent a whole offseason talking about him.
I was about to say Carlos Hyde's shirt. There was a couple of plays where if he had, a tighter shirt on or a shirt that would rip, that one, he probably busts through and gets a touchdown, and that's when he ran over Tyrann Mathieu. So that was just priceless, and I hope we got a good screenshot of that one. And then the other one was at the end of the game when we were trying to run out the clock, and they did stop him because they tackled him by that same stupid shirt that I'm surprised he didn't. How did he not cut it? And I hate to say anything about that team up near Oklahoma, but maybe he should go learn a lesson from that guy and just cut the bottom of his undershirt off. And now I understand why that guy up there does that. Because, man, that would have been funny. But the best part, or not funny, but funny, sad. The best part was him running over Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, that was just great.
Yeah, that was great, and it's a perfect segue into my next point of this is that we actually got to see Tyrann was not good against us. And who would have thought that he would have been good against us? Tyrann is not. He's not the honey badger of old. He's not what out of LSU in Arizona, the Swiss Army knife on defense. He's turned into the honey bear, and he's just kind of a guy. And we told Kansas City about that, and Kansas City fans were in our mentions and talking about, you just don't know how we're going to use him. He's the missing piece to our defense. Well, if Tyrann Mathieu is the missing piece to your defense, and that was the defense that we saw on Sunday, you guys have a lot of problems to sort out. And I get that Chris Jones is hurt, but God, you guys were awful on defense, and Tyrann Mathieu is not going to make you guys any better. He's going to be a cap casualty next year because he's not good at football anymore, and he's not worth $14 million.
Yeah, thank you for saving us from that mistake.
Yeah, agreed. All right, defense, low lights. Not a lot here, as they actually played pretty well. I put JJ was a no-show again, and I only put that because I haven't watched the game on all 22, and I'm sure he ate up a lot of blocks.
He's now number one in the NFL in QB pressures. Title of his brother.
Right. And I don't think he's top 10 either, actually.
No, he's number one.
Who, JJ?
Yeah, number one in QB pressures. Title of his brother, TJ Watt.
Okay, I thought you said he's not his brother.
No. He's tied with his brother. So it's one of those where when he didn't finish, but his impact was definitely there. It's the same thing that if we were going to talk about how stats aren't everything for D-Hop and Watson, it's the same with JJ.
Yeah. How about the same that we used to say for the last 4 years about Jadeveon Clowney?
Yeah. So it's one of those where
Mm,
I know right now you're still a little
mm.
bit disappointed in JJ, but he was better than fine. He was not a no-show.
Well, good. I'm glad that he's getting the pressures. Like I said, I'll watch the all 22 tomorrow. If I'm wrong, I'll admit it next week. I have no problem eating crow. But him not finishing is a problem. Like especially when he's JJ Watt and he's the only premier pass rusher we have. He's got to learn to finish. Not learn, I guess, because he knows he's done it before. He's just got to get back to finishing. It's what I'd like to see from JJ. Merck was quiet again. He didn't have his best game. He still made an impact, not to the level of JJ compared to what you were saying stat wise. I'll watch the film tomorrow, but yeah, Merck just kind of was there. I'd like to see him get back to what we saw the first 4 weeks. Roby Hurt sucks. That's really the biggest thing. Like the biggest question mark for us moving forward is just the secondary.
Our corners were our weakest position group. We've said this since all summer. And we really could not afford any injuries there. Roby's, of course, the one that's playing the best. So naturally, he's the one that's going to be out for a month.
Yeah. The good thing is that if our secondary was to get hurt, if there was anybody in the secondary that's going to miss a month, now is the time to actually do it because we play the Colts, the Raiders, and the Jags, and then we're on a bye. So if we're going to overcome the injuries in the secondary, this is probably the time to do it. Like I understand like the fear of TY, but keep in mind that TY is not having the ball thrown to him by Andrew Luck, and Jacoby Brissett hasn't been great this year. I know he had one game with us when we first played Jacoby Brissett, and TY had 175 yards. That we haven't really seen that this year, though. But they also haven't played a secondary like the Texans, so maybe that happens. But if we can come out of this, I think we'll be all right. But it still sucks to see that was the case. Zach scared me when he went down. That was like I was like, oh god, he's laying down. He like grabbed his leg for a second. I was like, oh no. But luckily for us, Zach Cunningham is fine. Justin Reed missing the interception, me being nitpicky again.
There's a reason he plays defense and not offense.
Yeah, I understand, but he could have like, swatted it. Like I don't know.
It was one of those
through his hands.
Yeah, that was just ridiculous.
You let a 5'9" wide receiver moss you. Like,
granted, Tyreek Hill can jump.
He can. He's an athlete, but all right, that's about it for the low lights. Other than that, I mean, it was a great game. We won. We beat the Chiefs. We did exactly what we needed to do. You guys that are clamoring for national media attention, you guys got a lot of it today. We even made the NFL Ringer show, which is something I asked for. They said that we're that scary team that starts to form in the middle of the season, and that if this offense is what we can come to expect, then the league needs to watch out. So that was nice. And then you pretty much got an entire hour on Colin Cowherd about Deshaun Watson. He's always been a Deshaun Watson fan. He's very critical of the franchise, but he's always loved Deshaun, and he had a great show today. So the national media is paying attention, and that's what a lot of you guys want. National media is also saying like Mahomes wasn't 100%. I freaking hate that narrative. Like, especially when you saw tweets come out, prior to the game that he said he's 100%, ankle's not bothering him, blah, 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 blah. And then, you go into the game and they lose, and then you have like a built-in, reason as to why they lost. I really hate that kind of stuff, but
it's not like he had
to is what it is.
Play a top-tier team after riding in a bus cross-country because it couldn't take a flight or anything,
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like they tend to miss what Deshaun went through last year, but whatever, it's fine. When we beat Kansas City in the playoffs, I guess then they could start to talk about how Deshaun's just that much better. All right, a quick AFC South update. Your Texans are 4-2 after beating the Chiefs. The Colts are 3-2. They're coming off a bye. We'll be playing them Sunday. The Jags lost to who did the Jags lose to? I don't remember, but they lost. Titans lost to the Buffalo Bills. And the best part about me writing this today was I get to say your favorite name. Nothing really to discuss outside of the AFC South, but the fact that Ryan Tannehill is played and is potentially going to be the starter. I just remember when you did the fantasy podcast, you kept saying Tannehill, so I wanted to be able to bring that up in the podcast.
Okay, thank you.
Any words?
Thank you. Thank you.
Any words?
I don't care.
Any words about?
I'm just
right.
I'm just okay with us. We're not having to celebrate about being kings of Crap Mountain. That's what I'm happy about right now. We've actually gone out. Both the Texans and the Colts have now beat the Chiefs. The Colts still scary, even though it's with Brisket. But could you imagine the Colts if Andrew Luck was still healthy or still wanted to play?
I think he's going
to drop Matt Ryan onto the Colts.
Yeah, I saw that. That's not happening. The only thing that
the only thing I know. No, it's just kind of to put in perspective. Like the Colts are going to be a battle. That's going to be a great game. I think Gardner Minshew. Damn it! Now I'm not going to be able to say his name. He is their version of Case Keenum, and it's what would have happened if we had gone with Case. Jacksonville's going to find out with going with Gardner down there that there's going to be games that are exciting. He's going to keep them in games, and he's going to do just enough to fool them into thinking that they don't have to go get a quarterback, which is going to keep them as kind of like an upper mediocre level team. But the Titans are just a hot mess.
Yeah,
Mariota continues to regress. Like he played better his first and second year than what he's playing right now. And maybe that's because he's had so many offensive coordinators, but there is something wrong with that kid's head with how he's reading the field, and it's regressed.
Yeah, I think it's funny that Tannehill played, and that's likely going to be the case this week as well. And maybe they'll get to 6 to 7 wins, but outside of that, they're not going to be able to draft a quarterback next year, and they're going to be in the same position.
Yeah, they're going to end up having to give up their draft to go get one, or they're going to have to do another year of Mariota. And they've got to re-sign him, and somebody's going to sign him for a decent amount of money.
Well, that's the thing. So that's where I was going next. With Mariota, it's never been talent. It's always kind of been between the ears. And, when you have 7 different offensive coordinators in 5 years, it's really hard to be able to have an understanding of what the team is going to accomplish and implement those offensive game plans and schemes. So I say that, and I'm wondering, where is the right fit for Mariota next year? Like there aren't a ton of teams that need quarterbacks anymore. It's kind of weird because usually every year there's at least 6 or 7 teams that need quarterbacks, and we're not. And that's not the way the NFL is right now. A lot of teams actually have their quarterbacks, but ideally, if you were to pick one team for him to go to, where would it be?
Honestly, right now, I'm not even sure. It would have to be. I think that Frank Wright would be the best coach for Mariota. So it's one of those that I don't want him to go to the Colts, because if somebody does get his head right, then he could be a very good quarterback. But the Titans they've messed up. They've messed him up. And I don't think they're going to be able to fix him. And it's kind of a shame because they've put together a pretty talented defense. And they've got some players on offense. Like they should be a decent team, but they're not. They're just not.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who they drop in at quarterback right now. I'm not a big fan of their offensive scheme. They're trying to combine what Bill O'Brien and Josh McDaniels do with what the Rams do and what the Packers kind of do. This kind of West Coast spread mix that it's really not working. And that's after having the exotic Smash Mouth years, like this is why Mariota struggles. They've taught him essentially to go from reading defenses to having to throw on time back to kind of sort of reading the defense, but depending on where he's at on his drop. So he's supposed to take 3 steps, scan a certain part of the field, and then if it's not there, continue into a 5-step drop and scan another portion of the field. And it's just not working.
So there's 2 spots that I think are and we're early, so to consider them dark horses would be crazy. But I think you'll see this once the offseason hits. One spot I think he would thrive and do extremely well and would give the team exactly what they need is Chicago. Him with a Matt Nagy offense would just be, if anybody can get something out of Mariota, I feel like Matt Nagy and his offense would be able to get a lot out of Mariota. And I think it would make that team complete. Because like I said,
that's interesting. That's very, very interesting.
Like we've said, it's not about his performance capabilities. It's just it's in between his ears. But man, a Matt Nagy offense with that, what they do so many things, lots of motions, RPOs, lots of play action. It would just be interesting. And then the second one to watch, if they continue to go down, is the Los Angeles Rams. So if I had to watch two teams, it would be those two.
No, I can completely see Sean McVay getting a hold of Mariota would get the most out of Mariota. I completely agree with that. I don't think they're going to bail on Goff quite yet, but maybe as a backup, which is scary. And then the Bears do not have as much talent on their offense as the Titans do. But I think that Nagy would be able to unlock Mariota. I agree with you on both points.
And then
I just think that at this point, Mariota needs to go somewhere, and maybe the Rams would be good because he could sit there and he could sit for at least a year before anything would be asked of him and kind of just reset, because that's what he needs. He just needs to reset. I mean, I feel for the kid, because to have that many different systems with that many that are that far apart in philosophies thrown at you, there's no quarterback that's going to come out of that and be good. That would mess any quarterback up.
Yeah. And then the super duper dark horse, and this team is really, really good right now, is the San Francisco 49ers. Even though I know that they're 6-0, Jimmy G hasn't been incredible this year. He's been okay, but he hasn't been incredible. And I still don't buy into them as a contender yet. I know they're 6-0 and they've had some really, really good wins. But a lot of those wins have come from just that defensive front is just stupid talented. I mean, they've put together talented,
and their ability to put together a running game plan
right
is just second to none.
So add Mariota to that mix with that run game and Kyle Shanahan. Oh boy,
heck, you can make him a running back there.
Oh my God! All right. Anyways, enough about Mariota. Anyway, so that's the AFC South update. All right, next week we play the Colts at 12:00. This game, I'm probably more scared about this game than I was the Chiefs game. And the only reason, there's literally only one reason that I am worried about this game, and it's just Frank Reich. His ability to be able to put game plans together and schemes to expose offenses and also expose defenses. He's just a really, really good coach. We've seen it. We saw it last year, and we saw it last year in the playoffs. He's a solid coach. I know Jacoby has not been. I don't even know if you could say that Jacoby's been average. I guess technically you could say he's been average this year. And they're 3-2, so they're winning. But I don't know, something about this game I just don't feel extremely comfortable with.
I'm terrified. That defensive coordinator has been able to already messed with Deshaun's head, and it's just using zones. We'll actually see more of Deshaun's growth this week than we have the previous couple of weeks, because they're going to take away the deep ball. They're going to make Deshaun play within, and they're able to generate push on the interior of the pocket.
Yep.
And those factors, we'll see. And if our offensive line is as improved as it has seemed to be, then we're actually going to be able to pick them apart. If they are able to get pressure and push the interior of the pocket like they did in the playoffs, it's going to bait Deshaun into trying to throw deep again, and that's not going to go well.
Yeah.
So I am right there with you they terrify me.
Yeah, T.Y. and Ebron are the two weapons that worry me. Maybe Hines out of the backfield. And a lot of that probably has to do with just I still see in my nightmares Tyrann Mathieu covering Nyheim Hines in the end zone. So maybe him not being there will make me feel better. But outside of that, those are really the only three. Like, I know Marlon Mack is having a great year. I think he's a top 5 running back statistically entering week 6. But the run game just doesn't worry me as much. I feel I'm confident in our run defense to be able to slow down the run. And I think if you can do that, I think you can beat the Colts because they are predicated off of the run. And it helps Jacoby a lot. So their defense is what scares me. And then their corners are really good. Their corners are really good. Really good corners. And this year they have the ability to play man, zone. They can do whatever they want. And their pass rush is a lot better. And Darius Leonard is just a bad man. I'll never forget last year when Darius Leonard covered Nuck out of the slot and deflected a pass. Like, he should not be able to do that. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a really good game. I just I don't think it's like this. Like, I guess I say that because I know how we get as fans. We're emotionally vested. So coming off of the win in Atlanta and then this big win in Kansas City, you feel unbeatable. You feel like nothing can go wrong. This is how it's going to go the rest of the season. Just understand that, one, that's not how the NFL works. It's very rare that you see teams just continuously dominate. There's the Patriots, and then that's it as far as that category. So just, keep in mind that this team we're playing is a very good team that is capable of beating us. Like, remember, they beat the Chiefs before we did. So don't go into this game thinking it's a lock. We should beat them. We have the weapons to beat them. We're better in most phases of the game, but just keep that in mind. Anything else on that, John?
Nope. I guess we're having to do our predictions, aren't we?
We're having to do our predictions, John. We're doing our predictions. Why don't you
I will say that I'm going to predict this game to be closer to the Panthers game and just even level of frustration to watch. Their defense is going to do enough that we're going to sit there and we're going to scream at the TV. And it's going to be a grind. It's going to be low scoring. However, this time I have faith that we're going to pull it out. I don't think that Jacoby Brissett and their offense has enough, even with our depleted secondary, to outmatch a frustrated Deshaun Watson in our offense, because our offense just has more weapons than theirs and more weapons than we had last year. And we should be able to outscore them, but it's going to be close because it's the NFL. It's always close. The Colts are a good team. Frank Wright's a great coach, but I'm going to go on the record and say that we beat them.
Okay. I'm a little more confident. I think that we do beat them. I do think that for the first 3 quarters, it's going to be a tougher battle. I think it'll be close throughout most of the game. But I think in the fourth quarter, we start to take off a little bit. The one thing that I feel is in our favor, and actually before Deshaun, this was never in our favor, but playing on the road with Deshaun always makes me feel better. He tends to just be better on the road. It's just the way he's been since he joined the team. And so with that being said, I think we beat them. I don't think we beat them handily. I think, like I said, through 3 quarters, it's going to be a very back and forth fight. But I expect us to pull away in the fourth quarter. I wouldn't be surprised if we, won by 7, maybe.
Fair enough. I expect Kiki to have a big game, though.
Yeah, he had 2 big games last year against them.
Yeah, I expect that to continue. That's still the weakness in their defense. That's why I think that there's probably a little bit more of an emphasis on our passing game being able to control the middle of the field at times. And between Kiki and Duke Johnson and Jordan Akins and Darren Fells, we should have enough that we can actually do this. And if you're a fantasy football holder or owner of Hopkins, prepare for another week that he's not going to be an wide receiver 1, but that's okay because he's going to mean a lot more to us winning the game.
So do you bench DeAndre Hopkins?
Never, ever.
Okay. All right. With that being said, we're an hour and 40 minutes into a podcast. You guys wanted a long one. We gave you guys a long one. You guys know where to find us. The outro will take care of all that. With that being said, I will see you guys next week when the Texans are 5-2 and we're playing Oakland. I'm Young Ari Gold signing off for Texans Unfiltered. We'll catch you guys next week.
Loved this episode of Texans Unfiltered? We'd love for you to be a Patreon supporter. Your support allows us to provide you with the best Texans podcast possible. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Houston FB Pod and everywhere podcasts can be found. And join our community on www.texansunfiltered.com or on Discord at Texans Unfiltered. Thank you for listening. Until next time.